Hi, guys. So let me just take a moment to make sure that everything is going right. So if you are watching the live session now, can you just say hi so that I know I'm not alone? Yeah. So, things can go haywire with technology. So I'm just making sure everything is good. Okay, let me start. Hi guys, how's your day? So today I have not one but three guests, and they're all professionals in mental health industry. So we're going to talk about how to manage your mixed emotion and burnout during lockdown. Now, this is very interesting because I know a lot of you have been posting about all the things that you're cooking, all the things you're baking, and all the exercises, and all the funny thing that you're trying to do to keep yourself alive, feeling alive, But I do know, and I'm one of them. I've posted a lot of my exercise photos, but I know behind that we are all kind of trying to take a hold on our emotions. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. Do you find yourself overreacting to things that is happening in your house, or maybe someone said something and then you kind of like flipped and burst out? Yeah, so this is all something got to do with our mental health condition given the lockdown. The lockdown has made everything a little bit more intense. Okay, so um, I'm going to bring in my guests one by one, and as I do that, please say hi to them as they come. Right? Okay, so let me introduce the first person, Joy. Hi, Joy.
Hi
Hi.
everyone. Hi Dean. Thanks for
Okay,
having me here.
no worries, it's a pleasure. So let me introduce Joy. Joy Howe is a registered psychologist and a full member of Singapore Psychological Society for the past 10 years. And she is the founder of Empathy Work Psychological Wellness. So Joy is someone who has a lot of insights in this topic. Yeah. Next,
Thank you.
I will introduce Veena. Hi, Veena.
Hi Dean. Hi everyone.
Hi,
Thanks for having me
Veena. So,
here.
Veena,
Hi
let
Vina.
me introduce Veena now. Veena Nandakumar is a counselor and a program manager with Caregiver Alliance Limited with 13 years of counseling experience. Wow, nice. Okay, and myself. Okay. So, hi, James. James, are you there? Okay, something is going on. James.
Hi,
Woo.
hello.
Hi James.
Hi,
Okay.
everyone. Hello.
Okay, so James
I
Lim.
hope everyone's well. Yeah.
Great. Let me introduce you to all the friends. So James Lim is the founder of Emmaus Strategy. He's experienced and overcame burnout at least 5 times, and he survived it. Right, live to tell. Right, and now he wants to help others to thrive over burnout, and that is his mission. James, 5 times. I think that's like incredible. It's incredible. Incredible that you actually knew that you had a burnout, and then you survived it, and then you went through it over and over again for 5 times. Like, wow, okay, we can learn a lot from you. So let's start let's start the show going, right? Okay, so this is the first question. A lot of times we don't realize that we are emotionally affected. I know I didn't realize it. So what are some of the behavioral indicators that can raise the flag, and what should we look for, or how can we self-check every now and then? Veena, do you want to take this question?
Yeah, sure, Dean. I think things that we can look out for is things that we can observe in ourselves, especially immediate things would be about our sleep and eating patterns. If
Mm,
you start seeing yourself binge eating a lot of, unhealthy stuff, that could be a sign of also, not coping very well. And sometimes when we are going through insomnia or you're not, sleeping too much as well, these are some clear indicators as well that, maybe you're not doing too well. So the subconscious mind is telling us these things as well of how we're trying to cope. And I think trying of like looking out for things like even if you're procrastinating a lot, you're trying to avoid a lot of responsibilities at times. These are ways that
mm.
you're trying to protect yourself and you're trying to also deal with the situation at hand. So I would say these are some of the few behavioral indicators, and I'm sure my fellow panelists can add on, I'm sure, a lot more as well that they would have observed.
Joy, do you have something else to add on?
Oh, okay. I think for instance, right, for myself, if I'm getting like feeling overwhelmed, I'll feel a little bit more irritable. Like, I'll get easily frustrated and like, slight little little things that people do around me might actually
Mm,
annoy me more than usual. So that's another sign. Also maybe we tend to actually also want to withdraw from people. Like, when we start
that's right.
to
Yeah.
not want to actually be involved with activities with
Mm,
people, or we start to hide in our own corner when I think this is another sign of like feeling overwhelmed, like feeling a bit okay, I need to actually calm down and take a step back. Yeah, so these
right.
are actually two other signs as well. How about
James.
James?
Yeah, James.
Okay.
For you,
Yeah.
it's a different set of questions. So I want to
Okay.
know what is the difference between feeling stressed out and feeling burnout. Is
Mm.
it is it a more intense feeling of stress, or is it completely different? Like you go to a different stage, you know?
Yeah. Thanks, Dean. I'm so glad you asked. I mean, frankly speaking, before I started my work, right, I didn't really know the difference. A lot of us actually use the word stressed and burnout very interchangeably, right? Like
Mm,
people say,
yeah.
"Oh, I'm burned out," but actually, there's distinct differences between there are differences between the two. Stress is actually kind of a condition where you go through where you kind of like feel you're in a threatening situation. Whereas I think the easy way of putting this is kind of like saying that when stress goes on overdrive, it will then cause burnout, and you will actually experience some of the symptoms that Joy and Vina mentioned, and lots more as well, and you will see things like your productivity drop, you're being very angry with
Mm,
people,
mm,
those
mm,
kind of things. So yeah, an easy way of just understanding that is that it's just stress on overdrive, and
mm.
it's kind of affecting your functioning as a person. Hmm.
So, when I was thinking about this topic, I also realized that we can go through ups and downs in emotions. So there could be good emotions, there could be negative emotions. Could any one of you just share what are some of the emotions we can expect, and as an indicator that we are actually going through some kind of lockdown, burnout, or stress? Who would like to answer that? Joy?
Oh, okay. I think for me personally, I think there's no right or wrong emotions.
Mm,
Actually, emotions are, I mean, as human beings, we will have emotions. So I guess the key is to be able to acknowledge these emotions, to actually know that, hey, if I'm feeling a bit more like, irritable, a little bit more that I've lost interest in things, maybe in things that I actually are usually pleasurable to us, maybe it's something, okay, that's a warning sign already. Or maybe
mm,
we feel a bit more that, like, like usually, for instance, for helpers, like people helpers, like, usually we like to help people. But let's say when there comes a point when we feel that, hey, why am I doing why am I doing what I'm doing? There's no point. I hate
mm,
helping people.
mm.
There's a lot of fatigue, and that's another kind of like emotional symptom as well.
Mm.
Or we
Is
start
it
to
is
feel
it something
like,
like when
hmm,
you feel like you are starting
hmm,
to question, why am I doing this? Like, why?
yeah,
Because on normal
yeah,
days,
that's right.
before the pandemic, you don't think about it, you just enjoy doing it. But then suddenly now
Yeah,
you are like questioning, why? What's the point of this? That's one
Yeah.
of the way.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
I also noticed that, or rather, I know from my own general knowledge that sometimes emotional issues can present themselves as a physical symptom. So, can
Mm.
you tell me more about physical symptoms that people can look out for? Uh, Vina?
Yeah, I think definitely sometimes some people they turn to unhelpful ways of coping as well. If you start noticing that you're starting to eat a lot more, or sometimes you're turning to alcohol or
Mm.
cigarettes
Mm,
and things like that a lot more to cope, that's definitely a key sign that that something's up with the way that you're actually dealing with things. And I think like what Joy mentioned earlier, it's just like withdrawal from people. So now it may not be so obvious, but sometimes we try to connect with friends via Zoom, having kind of online parties and stuff, if you're not feeling the motivation to actually go and connect with friends and family through such avenues, that's definitely a sign as well. And sometimes you might be more fidgety, you may be pacing a lot more, doing such things. So these are things to look out for certain.
Okay, James,
Yeah.
you have experienced it. So, what are some of the initial physical symptoms? Do you tend to have like headaches, or do you fall sick, and then you think that it's infection, but it's actually not? So James,
Yeah.
tell me your experience.
I guess it's different for everyone. I mean, some of us could actually be a little bit more, our health state could actually be a bit more better than others. But for me, for example, right, one of the things that really got me thinking that I could be burnout was I was actually hospitalized twice in a month. When I was actually experiencing my burnout prior to starting to do what I'm doing now, and yeah, I was actually having pneumonia. And I didn't even think about it. So one of the telltale signs is like, you could actually be falling sick. Your immunity could actually be low. And you're very susceptible to, common colds and all those kind of things. And of course, in more severe cases, like for me, it's pneumonia. And I didn't think much about it, frankly, after two times of being warded into hospital, until my colleague just very jokingly said to me, says, I think you're overworked. And even though that remark was actually made kind of like as a joke, half meant as a joke, it really set me thinking. And nowadays, especially for me, when I start to be a little bit, I get sick very easily. Then I kind of pay attention. Whether could I actually be stressed? Could I actually be burning out? It actually sets off alarm bells, and I just make sure that I'm okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I based on my reading, I know that. Please correct me if I'm wrong, right? I know that when you are very stressed, your immunity tends to go down, and that's why you tend to get all this flu and yours is even worse, pneumonia, right? So all these physical symptoms is actually telling your body telling you that something is going wrong emotionally. True?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So,
yeah.
what can we do? What can we do now? Now that we realize that we are emotionally not centered. I don't want to say imbalanced, right? Because it sounds like something's wrong with you, but we are not centered like we used to be. So, Joy, what do you have to say?
I guess maybe it'll be very helpful to have self awareness, like
Mm,
knowing about our own physical symptoms, like what James has mentioned. Like if we start to feel like no I mean we start to have stomach aches or pains and so on, or we start to fall sick more easily. So that's a sign that hey, okay, I need to actually slow down, take a break, you know, take a break from all these
mm, mm, mm.
overwhelming things around us. So that's one way. Maybe also being kind to ourselves. Yeah,
Yeah,
compassionate
that's
towards
so
ourselves.
absolutely. Yeah, be kind to ourselves. Be kind to ourselves. I'm just going to put a banner
Exactly.
up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because
Okay.
we, yeah,
Now,
that's right.
the thing is that I experienced this myself. I think it was last week or the week before. So for 2 whole days, I just couldn't think well. So I call it brain fog, right? So I can't think well, and I felt really guilty about it because I can't do my work,
Mm,
right? So I think what you said is really important. We need to be kind to ourselves. The good thing for me is that uh, I was complaining it to one of my close friends, and she said there will be days where you have good days, and there will be days where it is not so good, and when it's not so good, you just have to take a break
Yeah.
because in
yeah.
lockdown we are not going anywhere anyway, right?
Mm,
Right. So now I want to talk about self-talk. So I'm just lucky that I have a friend who can say that to me, but not all of us have, right? We are all kind of reacting to the situation, and then now we know that now we are good in Singapore. We're going into phase one, and that is really not much different from what we are now. So we are seeing ourselves as like, oh my God, 4 more weeks of this thing. So, what are some of the things that we can say to ourselves? I know self talk is really powerful. So, any one of you, what can we do? What can we say to ourselves to kind of get through this really difficult time?
Yeah, I think when we're talking about self-talk, right, it could be something that is very new to some people, right? I mean, it's like people will just say, you mean what? We talk to ourselves? We all do have internal dialogues with ourselves, and it's what we can do really is, I think one of the thing about it is really sometimes pausing, taking a pause and really look, we watch, some of us have watched the movie, called Inside Out, right? And it kind of tells
Yes.
us that yeah, there are a lot of things happening inside. It's just whether you're aware or not. And it's a time for you to pause. And one of the things that I always do for myself, and when I talk to people about self-talk, is one of the starting points is you could actually ask yourself, what are some of the expectations you have of yourself as well? What are you saying to yourself? Like for example, when you are going through a very tough time, and like for example in COVID-19, things can seem to be not working right in the right ways, right? And then you can be yourself like, oh, I'm so inefficient, I'm not getting things right. But the thing is that, are you being too harsh? Just like what Joy said, be kind to yourself, right? What are some of these expectations that you have of yourself? Because we are very familiar with people having expectation of us, but what are some of the things that you have about yourself, the expectation you have yourself? One of the things that very quickly we can actually look into is, like for example, are there words that you use, when you talk to yourself, words that you use, like for example, I must, I have to,
Wow, that's so powerful. Yes. What other words we need to know this?
yeah, I mean, it's just these, but the word like must and have to, right? These will create really great stress, right? And if you constantly engage in that kind of talk, right, you will wear yourself out, right? You're holding yourself to very high. There's nothing wrong with holding yourself to very high standards, but we need to, we need to accept the fact that we're in very challenging times now. Things are very different now. So we have to be very careful with what we're saying and what we're expecting of ourselves. Yeah.
I think one of the other word that came to my mind that really kind of heightens our stress is should. I should
Sure.
be doing this. I
Right.
should be.
Right.
Or maybe something else like I could have, right?
Mm.
In retrospect, you say I could have done this, I could have done that, but we
Mm.
wouldn't know, right? It's hindsight 2020, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what
Yes.
other words does Joy or Vina? Do you have anything else that could add to this list, or is this complete?
I think those are the main kind of words that most of us, or I have to, as what James mentioned, a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves a lot of times about things that we should, should be doing, have to be doing, or like you mentioned earlier, Dean, about could, a lot of like this comparison that we have for ourselves with other people as well as benchmarks of success. So it's not really helpful when we keep imposing a lot of these standards on ourselves. So also to address your other question, I think something that helps me is like when we were talking about feelings earlier, for me, feelings are feedback. So I always ask myself also, what are the feelings trying to tell me? Because they actually have a very helpful term that, they're trying to express to us some things that's going on in our body. And our body is also a very helpful way of benchmarking what's going on for us in terms of our stress levels. So if our immunity is going down, if certain things are not quite working for us, they are actually trying to express certain things that are happening for us. So I would ask myself that, and I would also say that I'm in control of my well-being, and also what are things that I can do to make myself feel happy and feel cheerful again, and things like that. So these would be some kind of things that I would also try to encourage myself with.
Wow. Okay.
Mm.
So, Joy, do you have anything to add? Don't feel stressed to add anything.
Yeah, I think in my counseling practice or in the talks that we do, right? So there's this like what James and Vina has mentioned, Mr. Should and Mrs. Must, are people whom we need to disconnect with. So Mr.
I like
Should,
that.
Mrs.
Mr.
Must,
Should.
yeah, or
Yeah.
Miss Ought. Yeah, or it can be about us. No, I should be the perfect father. No, I must be liked by everyone, or everybody ought to agree with what I say. All these actually put pressure on ourselves relationships and also on people as well. Another thing that actually that just came to my mind this morning was this fear of missing out. Currently I think there's so
Yes.
much webinars and so many
Mm.
courses online, and sometimes we feel that, hey, if I don't join this, if I don't join that, no, am I missing out on something? Am I, am I behind my peers and so on? So instead, maybe telling ourselves, no, I'm fearful of missing out. Maybe how about changing it to the joy of missing out?
Oh, I like that. Yes, joy of missing out. Why do
yeah,
we need to
Mm.
know so much, right? We don't need to know so
exactly,
much. We are still
exactly.
Yeah.
alive. We will still
Yeah.
go on, right?
Yes.
Mm. Yeah, Jomo.
Jobo. Okay, now that's a new one. What's that?
From
Yeah,
FOMO
and
to JOMO.
correct.
Yeah.
And I think thanks for that. And I agree with Vina as well, right? I mean, one of the things about how feelings are kind of is a feedback, right? And
Yeah.
one of the things
Yeah.
about it, the natural reaction for a lot of us is that we tend to feel very negative about negative feelings. Okay, I say that again. We tend to feel very negative about
Yes,
negative
you're so
feelings,
right.
right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, but we need to acknowledge that sometimes negative feelings may not be bad. It's only
Mm.
bad when it causes destruction to to you. When it's distracting you, the way that you are and causing problems in your functioning. Like for example, anger, right? Anger. A lot of us say, "Wow, it's bad to be angry," but anger actually drove some people to really advocate for people, advocate
Mm.
for to start movements and meaningful movements to help people who might be we might be underprivileged and all that. So I think sometimes it's nothing wrong having negative feelings, but the important thing is what do you do with it. Whether do you acknowledge having it, what can you do with it, what positives can come out of it. Again, I think it's kind of like also related to the must and shoulds. We must not feel angry. We must not have negative emotions, right?
Mm. Mm.
That's
And
right.
I think we will actually miss out on a lot. If we actually don't sometimes acknowledge and accept some of these negative feelings,
Yeah.
and let it drive us positively. Yeah.
I
Yes.
think I
So.
just want to add on to what James you have said is that
Mhm,
we need to accept that we are emotional creatures and we
mhm,
will feel. And so
Yeah.
when we feel something negative, we tend to feel bad for feeling negative, right? And that
yeah.
feeling bad for feeling negative is the one that's causing us stress and suffering, isn't it?
Yes.
Because if
Yes.
we
Yes, it is.
accept that negative feeling and just work, process through it, things will that situation will be processed much easier internally, right? Am I right to
Mm.
say that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm very curious. I'm very curious. You guys, okay, so James, you already said you went through burnout, right? So Joy and Vina, you are professionals in this. You know what to expect, you know how to solve this thing. But do you find yourself getting into situations of stress, to the burnout without realizing it? What's your experience like?
Yes. I can definitely share first. I've gone through burnout a few times as well.
Wow.
James as well. So I think doesn't mean if you're a professional, it makes you exempt from going through burnout. I think
Yeah.
end of the day, we're all human beings. So, we will still be naturally inclined to sometimes fall prey to stress, go through certain things. And I think sometimes people don't realize that when we are helpers, we're actually more susceptible to actually going through burnout because, we're in the front line of helping people day to day more often. So you're more likely to actually experience that as well when you put yourself in that position as well.
Mm,
So
mm,
yeah, it will happen, but I think it's like learning, like what James said, is like every time when you go through something like that, you learn lessons from it about what you actually can actually gain and actually learn from it to in order to share with others
mm.
as well. So I think that's the important point that I realized for myself.
How about Joy? What's your experience like with stress and burnout?
Certainly, I have my many fair share of like stress and burnout. That because we are like in a way we are giving emotionally of our time, attention when we do counseling or even talks and so on. So
Mm,
sometimes there are times, many times where I feel okay, okay, I'm so drained. There's nothing more to give.
mm,
Sometimes I may just go through the motion, and sometimes secretly I might think that, okay, I hope that this session is okay, that I don't have to go for this session and so on. So I think definitely like what Vina has mentioned that you know uh I think helpers or even frontline workers, essential workers, they are more susceptible to burnout because they are always giving. So I think we need to
That's right.
actually,
Yeah. Okay.
they're always giving, and
They're giving. Yeah.
yeah, to be very aware, mindful of our emotional bank. When we are
Okay. So,
actually.
the next thing I want to know is what is your favorite activity or strategy, tactic, whatever you call it? What is your favorite or most effective way to deal with this? So let's start with James. James, you have done this a few times over. So because
Mm,
before you go there, James, I want to know how did you realize? You mentioned once that someone mentioned that you might be suffering from burnout, but you went through it
mm.
many times. So how in that later burnouts how did you realize that you were having a burnout? And then you can then tell us what is your strategy for overcoming it.
Okay, for this, I'll actually call it, we have like FOMO and Jomo, right? Now I have Lobo, the lessons of burning out. LOBO.
Lobo.
Yeah, so I've been through burnout, and the thing is that at least 5 times I kind of like stopped counting already, But one thing about it is that the thing is that I didn't burn out for the same reasons. I burn out for various reasons. I learned different things from each burnout episode, right? So how do I find out? I mean, it's actually kind of like along the way, and you can actually very easily look through Google, Google for symptoms of burnout. And they actually provide you with a long list without need to going into that. What I did was that basically I took some of this list and I actually arranged them into a very nice acronym, called ICE-T. So I always tell myself, okay, if I feel that I'm burning out, I need to actually have ICE-T. What the ICE-T stands for? So ICED, then the letter T. I stands for feeling of inadequacies, ineffectiveness. C stands for cynicism. E stands for exhaustion, mental and physical exhaustion. Then D stands for detachment, something that both Joy and Vina mentioned. And then T as in just the letter T, it's actually a sense of feeling trapped, that you can't do much about it. So kind of, I think, and that's what I've actually been teaching and sharing with everyone, because nobody keeps a long list to go around and say, okay, am I burnout, right? It's so difficult to bring a long list, but with an acronym like that, it's easy for you to know. Now, in terms of strategies, right, I'm still learning, frankly. I'm still learning from Lobo, and there are many strategies, but one of my most favorite strategy, which I'm still trying to perfect it, is basically the strategy of really having a sustainable rhythm. Whether is it for work, especially even more so now when we are all working from home, right? Your lines between work and family is blurred. Last time I used to say that work used to invade our personal space. Now work invades our living space, right? And the thing about it, so it's very important that we have very clear boundaries between work and our personal our self-care time and our time with our loved ones. And for different one of us, it works differently. Whether is it carving out a certain routine, and really honoring that. Very importantly, if public holidays, weekdays, and your off days are rest days, honor that. Don't work on public holiday. It's very tempting. As for those of us, like me, people who are workaholics, wow, another extra day to work. But honor that time of rest, right? We must rest. That's the time where I can use the word must. We must rest. Yeah.
We must.
So
Yeah,
yes,
that's a good,
I can go on and on. Yeah.
good use of must.
Yes. Yeah. But don't stress yourself out with that.
Vina, what's your strategy?
I think one thing that I learned for myself is really to cultivate a life outside of work. That's very important. Find something that you're passionate about, something else that you're really invested in. So for me, it was actually volunteering in actually becoming a tour guide, a volunteer tour guide. So I joined a community of fellow like-minded people who actually do this as well on a regular basis. So I found that when you actually invest yourself in something else, it actually brings a lot of meaning to your life. And you realize that there's life outside of work, and it actually gives you a lot of meaning and hope as well. So I think that is one of the things. Another thing is, I think, take relaxation seriously. I think like what James mentioned, when you actually are supposed to rest, do rest. Doesn't mean you have to just be lying down, but whether it's listening to music, whether it's spending time with family and friends, meditating, whatever is your go-to thing, take that seriously and, give yourself time to actually honor that.
Okay, Joy, what's your strategy now?
My strategy would be doing at least one thing on my bliss list, BLISS. I would call it things that we enjoy or things that bring us positive emotions. For instance, it could be just a cup of nice coffee, having a cup of nice coffee at home, having a hot shower, simple little things, simple pleasures that we can do at home. So at least do one thing that I enjoy every day. Or it can be just watching my favorite drama for a short while, going downstairs for a walk, just to take in the fresh air. So that's one thing. Another thing that actually I find it very helpful for me personally is to surround myself with people who care. So when there are times when I feel so overwhelmed, I'll actually call somebody. At least have maybe two people that I can be vulnerable with. That people who I know that will not judge me for what I share. I can just pour out everything to these two people. So these are the two things that actually help me when I'm feeling very overwhelmed.
So, running up what Veena and Joy has said, friends, what you need to do is have some passion outside your work, that you do it for the sake of purely enjoyment. You are
Yes.
not expecting anything out of it. So, you kind of let go because there's no expectations, right? There's no
Yes.
KPI, there's no standards to follow.
So,
And then Joy is saying what I thought was very, very important is that you need to have a few people in your life that you can reach out to in moments of stress,
Stress.
struggle, moments of struggle, right? Yeah. So, friends, I want to ask you, do you have people in your life, even if it's just one person, do you have people in your life that you can reach out to in a moment of struggle? If yes, just type yes. If if you're willing to share who that person is, then put that person's name down there and give a shout out to that person, right? I saw a comment here. Let me just check. Okay, it's by Hui Fang. So she's mentioning emotional bank. So how many emotions? I think what she's trying to say is we can look at our emotions as a bank, and then we can fill it up, and then when we are serving someone, it gets withdrawn. So how do we fill it up again so that there's always a good balance so that it doesn't go into the red? Any ideas from you guys? Anyone?
for
I think,
me,
yeah,
go
Okay,
ahead.
Veena,
sorry.
let's Veena. Veena.
Yes.
I think it
Gina.
depends on the experiences that you develop along the way. So, try and accumulate a lot more positive experiences that you enjoy with family and friends. And I think the memories that you develop accumulates this sort of resilience sort of package in your, in your emotional bank, so that whenever things get tough, these are the sort of memories and emotions that you can actually draw on as well to kind of fuel yourself. So that could be one way of doing it.
James, you had something to say?
Yeah, I mean, as in the other way, I think definitely one of the things is we this question actually does tell us that we need to fill up our emotional bank, right? It will get depleted, and one of the ways is like what Vina mentioned, is to see how to actually fill it up. The other way is also what I always look at is to identify emotional guzzlers, things that will drain you of your emotional bank. If for example you're in a particular, especially in a crisis situation like this, right? If you're for example, in a WhatsApp group that is really causing you a lot of negative thoughts, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you're going through social media, I just watched a video yesterday about a person who actually goes for social media detox twice a year. And he actually says that how he realized sometimes that while scrolling through Instagram and while going through social media, you could actually unintentionally have very negative self-talk about yourself. Oh, look at this guy, look at him, he's having such a good time, look at
Because
his
everyone else is
biceps.
having a better life, right?
Yeah. So it's to identify some of these emotional guzzlers and to take action, to prevent your emotional bank from being depleted. Yeah, because it can really deplete very quickly. You're not careful about it. Yeah.
Yeah, what you mentioned is emotional blacklist, right? Is that what you said?
Blacklist, yeah, guzzlers. I think
What's the gas list? Sorry, I don't understand.
I think that just things that just drain you.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
Gas list.
yeah.
Okay. So let me just
Okay,
share
very
it with everyone. Emotional Guz list,
Gus.
right?
nice.
Is this the right word? Guz list?
So
Oh
it
my God.
just feeds on it. So I think
Mm.
Guzzler. I think if I'm not wrong, if I didn't get it,
Guzzler.
yeah,
Oh,
guzzlers.
Gazla,
Yeah,
Gazla,
Guzzler.
yeah.
Gazla.
So it just feeds and feeds and feeds. Greedily. Yeah.
Gazla. Okay, okay.
Correct.
Interesting. It's the first time I heard this expression, but it's very, very
Mm,
good. Okay,
Yeah.
so
mm.
you guys have been mental health professional for a long time. Are there any surprising patterns you noticed from supporting your clients over the years?
Hmm.
Joy, do you notice anything?
Actually, yeah, I'm actually very proud to see that actually, and also very happy to see actually that clients or people whom I work with actually are more resilient than they think. Exactly, and they are
Ah,
more yeah, they have the inner resources that actually sometimes they overlooked. It could be their, we call it SEA, their strengths that
mm,
they actually could overlook or downplay. It could also be them having experiences in the past. It can be failures, past experiences, or good or bad experiences that actually helps them to actually become a more resilient, stronger person that can
so
help
you're
them
saying
through.
that we all actually have all the resources that we need to get through
Exactly.
the challenges, right? It's just that our mind is clouded with all the negative thoughts at that moment, and it
That's
doesn't
right.
get to that. Yeah, Vina.
That's right.
Yeah, I would agree with Joy. A lot of time, like the clients that I work with, sometimes it's just helping them to unpack a lot more and have that clarity. But they do have a lot more resources at hand and they even realize. And when they actually tap on it and they unwrap these sort of resources, they get really excited about being able,
Mm,
being able to use them in very useful ways. So they find that it's actually something that is very positive about them
Mm.
and they actually are able to tap on a lot of strengths such as curiosity, which is very important, being curious about their own lives and about what is it that they can actually use about themselves and others around them that they can tap on. So yeah, I definitely agree with Joy on that.
okay, James, do you
Mm.
have something to say about this? Do you
Well,
see
I
any
don't.
interesting
Yeah.
patterns?
Interesting. What? Sorry.
Interesting patterns or surprising patterns you
Okay.
notice from your clients over the years?
Okay, so for me, my clients are mainly because I don't do one-on-one as a
Okay.
yet. A lot
Mhm.
of what I do is actually more on talks and workshops and trainings.
Education,
Uh,
right? Mm.
yeah, education. Yeah, because I think a lot of people don't know much about burnout. So one interesting pattern I see is that how a lot of people actually have how should I put this? They always think that people who burn out are basically people who don't know how to, they are weak, and all that. But very interesting thing is that Harvard Business Review actually shows that in their one of the performance management book is actually say the top performers are actually the ones that's most prone to burnout. I mean, it makes sense, right? People who are passionate about their work, who are really top performing, they need to always be at the edge of their game. They're most they're most vulnerable to burnout. And the thing about it is that, but yet, all of us are actually susceptible, especially these group of people. But
Mm.
yet, a lot of us actually don't want to seem vulnerable, right? We always want to put up this picture that we're fine, and that doesn't help. End of the day, I realize people who actually are able to accept the fact that they are vulnerable and they need support, they actually will be able to bounce back. So that's actually part of resilience, right? Be able
Mm.
to
Mm.
actually accept the fact that you are a finite being, and even during this time, even COVID-19, if you're going through a tough time, there are various resources, community resources out there. You have family resources, like the National Care Hotline, financial assistance and all that. I think that is everybody's going through challenging times. So there
Absolutely.
is no
Yeah.
shame in wanting to say that, oh, I'm weak.
Yeah.
We just need to get through this time, and we
No,
we,
we
we
all
just need.
need to. I think we need to accept the fact that there'll be times when we will dip, and
Yes.
then
Mm,
it is the going up back again that makes you a better person, right? And
Mm.
if
yes,
you
it
dip
is.
and you stay there, maybe you need help. But if you are dipping and then you go up and you dip and you go up, means you're a resilient person, right?
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lobo. Lessons of burning out.
Yes. So you see, I have another question. Carrying on with what James has said, you see, uh, we think that showing our vulnerability or the vulnerable side of being stressed or feeling burnt out is something that you don't want to show to people. You want to hide it. But I think one of the ways that we can tell other people that it is okay to feel that way is to actually reach out to them.
Mhm.
So, I was thinking, a lot of times we can sense that imbalance in us, but it's much easier for us to see it in someone else. So, what is the right way for us to go and approach them in the most empathetic way or in the most sensitive way and tell them, you know what, maybe you are experiencing burnout or stress? Any ideas from you guys?
I think for me, it's definitely not an easy topic to broach, really, because it's like telling someone in the face, I think you need help, right? And people don't really like that, right? It's like, what do you mean, I think for me, I basically capitalize on my own experience and I be vulnerable first. So I share with people about my experience, or even if I don't get the chance to share about my experience burning out, I actually share with them. When people ask me, how are you? I don't put out a front, and I do say, well, frankly speaking, not the best. But I'm trying I'm trying to keep well, and I think by taking the first step and being vulnerable, it helps people to kind of like not have to like outdo you. Is it? Oh, you're doing fine. I must say that I'm doing
Ah.
fine too. And it
But
does open up the conversation.
we tend to say, when people ask, how are you? We just say, oh, I'm fine. Even though there's
Mm.
a lot of things going on, because it's a social expectations, right? Just say, I'm fine. So now you're saying that, maybe we need to be a little bit more real in answering this question. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to
Sorry,
be
James,
more real.
can you carry on what you were saying?
I know. I mean, basically, that's really being authentic, being real, being truthful. I mean, it's really what we are going through. If we are working in a team, it helps. If you are actually able to be vulnerable with other people. I mean, of course, when we do that, we have to be prepared that other people may not reciprocate, right? But there is nothing wrong in you being vulnerable. I mean, it just shows that you're human, right? You're human. You're going through challenging time, just as everyone is going through challenging time. So I think that's a very important step in helping to break down any barriers. For that works for me at least. Yeah.
Vina, you had something to say.
Yeah,
How can we reach out to someone and say it in the nicest way, so that they don't become defensive or go into denial? Do you have
I
any strategies?
I think strategies would be again like starting with yourself, like kind of saying that, like what James was saying. I agree. Start with yourself, your own experience of going through certain things that you've
Mm.
observed about yourself when you've actually gone through that. Then also pose it as like an open-ended question. I wonder for yourself, like what is it that you've observed recently as well,
Ah,
or
that's a
what
good
is
one.
it
Yeah.
that you've noticed that has been going on for you. So when we have that open-ended conversation with a friend, or whether it's someone who you've noticed is maybe having some struggles, then at least they might be more willing to bring down their guard, to be also a bit more
Mm,
open-ended, because you're also showing your vulnerability, like what James said, which is true. It's
mm,
important to start with our own vulnerability and to show that, end of the day, we all have this vulnerability, and it's okay to show that, because it's actually a sign of strength, actually, to be able to be
mm.
vulnerable.
To
So
actually to actually acknowledge your vulnerability is the real strength, right?
yes, that is the
Yeah.
real strength
Yeah.
behind it. Yeah. So then the person will be more willing, hopefully, to acknowledge, and they actually are the best observers of themselves. So they probably would have
Mm.
noticed certain things that are not doing so well.
So, Joy.
Okay, yeah, I think to add on, I guess ourselves, like if we really want to reach out to another person, being aware that of our own being more empathetic, being open to whatever they might share or might not share. Perhaps we can say something like, hey, I noticed that you're a little bit more quiet recently on the WhatsApp group. I noticed that you're a little bit more tired easily. Is there anything that I can help? Just like offer, or sometimes we don't even need to say anything. Just if we can,
Just
if it's
comment, right? Just say, oh, I
exactly,
noticed that you're quite quiet these days,
exactly,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
That's it. And then leave it open and see how they respond, right? It's very
exactly,
interesting. I learned that.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, I had one person, because I was doing my social media detox. So I
mm,
was out of Facebook for a good 2 years. I just
mm,
didn't want to go in. So I only go in once in a while. Until
Oh,
one
that's long.
person, yeah, that's long.
It's long.
I feel good now. I feel good about myself now. So,
Yeah.
so it's only when one of my close friend
Ah,
sent me a message as how are you, and I didn't see you on Facebook these days. So that's why I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it's time for me to get back because nothing's wrong with me. So then I feel like it's I'm in a much healthier state to come back, right?
yes, that's
Yeah.
true.
Okay. I noticed here Hui Fang was saying something. Instead of offering direct help, like maybe you are experiencing burnout, I will propose activity together with them, which helps them relax. So Hui Fang, if you have examples of such activities, could you just type it out in the comments? But experts, what kind of activities do you have? Anything top of your mind to suggest?
Mm,
Yeah. Yes. Joy?
But you know the problem is, yeah, this is like off the cuff question, right? It's okay. But I think what Huifang might be thinking is like, oh, let's go for a walk together. But that's going to be very difficult in COVID. We can't even meet anyone
Yeah.
outside our household. So, uh,
Mm.
yeah. So
that's
so I'm really interested, Huifang. So if you have something about this, just add it on to the comment.
Um,
We can all read it later.
Maybe I will share an example, something that I do with my friends. If you are like, interested in watching like plays or musicals, you can always
Mm.
do that together with your friends these days. Do a Zoom party, actually like watch together at the same time the thing, and then you have a sort of discussion during or after the show as well about how things or how you actually found the performance and things like that. So that could be a way of socializing. Or if you're a more active person, do a Zumba party, and it's a good way to burn calories as well.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's right. So Huifang is saying in the comments, say that, yeah, okay. So basically, she's using Singlish. So she says, "Oh, invite the person to out for coffee or talk, or chat." Uh, but this we can't invite anyone out for coffee. I wish I can go out for coffee, but we can't. We have to go
Yeah.
buy the coffee and come back. So I guess, like what Vina said, everything has to be done online now, right? And that's we
Yeah.
have to be contented with it. So, yes, any last words, any last advice or words of wisdom from any one of you before we end this?
I think one thing I would like to share is how it's actually it's a time that's challenging for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And I think we don't have to dispute that. And it's also a time whereby we can actually do good to help lift people's spirits up. Like what Vina mentioned, if we could volunteer remotely, that's one way of doing good. If not, we can kind of look out for friends. And one of the things that personally I felt very blessed with is that, just yesterday, I had, and I have friends who do this, different friends, and they just like bought a packet of bread, and then they just left it at my door.
Oh,
you know
Oh,
my sister
that's so
actually
nice.
would actually, yeah, my sister would actually like she would actually like buy food delivery and then order and then send it to my house. I
You
think
know
such
what?
little
Can I
gesture.
just
Yeah.
interrupt a bit? If
Yes.
this happened outside of lockdown, I will
Yes.
be very worried. I'm like, who is this stalker coming and leaving food at my because this
Yeah.
lockdown is like it makes complete sense.
Yeah, what's this food doing here, right? But
Yeah,
I mean, let's not give up the opportunity to do little goods and to one another and to lift up spirits. I mean, it doesn't have to be something that is really extravagant. Like I'm really blessed by my friend leaving that packet of bread. So it's a couple that I know from church who actually came and I think they just left it there, and it's not expensive bread, but it really means a lot to me.
it is
That
the act,
someone's
right? The
watching.
act of
Someone's watching. I mean, it's watching out for you. Someone has your back. That you are loved, and I think that actually really is powerful. At least for me, I like that. And so let's not give up opportunity to do good to one another during this time. Let's be
all
creative
right.
about it. Yeah.
And it's a simple act, right? We are not asking you to do something amazing, like big, right? Okay. Vina, what
Mm.
what do you have any last words?
I think just be willing to step out of your comfort zone during this period of time. Find ways to be creative, like what James mentioned, to connect
Mm,
with friends and family using technology and so on. And I think practicing a sense of gratitude for things that we do have actually makes a big difference for everyone, because a lot of times we are a lot more blessed in a lot of ways compared to some people who are struggling in a lot of other countries with this COVID lockdown. So I think kind of reminding ourselves about that, and actually what we do have actually does, just enrich us a lot more.
Joy?
I guess also I'd like to encourage people that it is okay to seek help. There's no shame in seeking help. If let's say at any point that we find that hey, I've done all that I can, I'm still feeling overwhelmed, anxious, or depressed, then I would encourage them to seek professional support. And there's no shame in seeking help. In fact, I think it takes a lot of courage to step out and to seek help. Yeah, and lastly, HOPE, whatever we are going through right now, hang on, pain ends. Pain will end.
Oh, I like that.
Oh,
Hang on,
Correct, everyone.
pain ends.
Yeah.
Because there's
yeah.
hope.
Joy is the person to go for such meaningful abbreviation.
Oh, yeah. You need to write a book on your abbreviations, Joy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just run off with the key points that we have made. First is we need to know that we are going through emotional ups and downs, right? And
Yeah.
then the next thing I remember is saying that when someone says that, maybe you are going through stress or maybe you are suffering from burnout, I think take pause and think about it, because maybe that person is saying the truth, right? And then you need to have certain strategies to kind of de-stress, let the pressure off, and do not have high expectation, or rather review your expectations. Is it too high given the current situation,
Yeah.
right? And then you all mentioned all the different strategies, and Hui Fang always there to help us. Say National Care Hotline 1-800-202-686. This is if you're in Singapore, right? Okay, thanks, Hui Fang. Okay. All right. You know what? This is another great session. I always aim to end at 30 minutes, but because you guys were so good sharing so much, now it's 15 minutes now. So, but thank you. And I hope, friends, you have learned so much. Please share this video. I think a lot of people are going to learn. And because our conversation is so nice, I'm sure they're going to listen right to the end, right? So thank you, Joy, thank you, Vina, thank you, James.
Thank
We'll see you
you.
again.
Thank you.
Bye
Thank you,
bye.
team.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Dean.
See you.
Bye.
Keep
Bye.
well. Stay well.